She roped a steer better than any man. The cowboy said, "I need you on my ranch." Maggie had grown up surrounded by wide, open fields and the warm, dusty smell of Texas farmland. Her family's small farm sat on the outskirts of a tiny town where everyone knew everyone else, and life moved at a slow, steady pace. Mornings began with the soft glow of sunrise spilling over the fields, and evenings ended with the quiet hum of crickets as the sky turned pink and orange. Maggie loved the rhythm of farm life, even though it was hard work, long hours, and often left her hands rough and calloused. She never minded the chores because there was a freedom in the fields she couldn't find anywhere else. From a very young age, Maggie felt more at home on a horse than anywhere else. She remembered her first ride when she was only 5, gripping the reins tightly as her father led her around the barnyard. The horse had been gentle, patient with her tiny hands, and she felt a thrill that ran all the way from her toes to her hair. After that day, she spent every free moment on horseback, learning the ways of the animals, feeling the wind on her face as she galloped across pastures, and slowly discovering that she had a natural gift. She could sense a horse's moods, know when a calf was about to bolt, and move with a quiet confidence that amazed even her older brothers. Her family noticed her talent early on, though they never said much about it. Maggie's father, a hardworking man with strong arms and a kind smile, often watched from the porch as she practiced roping calves. He admired her skill, but he also knew the world outside their farm could be harsh, especially for a young woman who loved work that most people believed was only for men. "You've got a good hand," he said one evening, wiping the sweat from his brow. "Just remember, not everyone will see it the way I do." Maggie nodded, understanding the weight of his words. She wasn't afraid of hard work, but she was learning that talent alone might not always be enough in a world that judged by tradition. Maggie's brothers were more straightforward about it. Her oldest brother, Tom, liked to tease her mercilessly. "You think you can rope better than me?" he would say, laughing, even though Maggie usually beat him when they practiced. Her younger brother, Billy, looked up to her with wide eyes, always asking her to show him the proper way to swing a rope or hold a lasso. Maggie loved teaching him, and in those moments she felt proud and strong. She wanted to be a role model, not just for her brothers but for herself, proving that determination and practice could take her far. The town itself was small but full of life. There was a general store where the smell of fresh bread mingled with leather saddles, a single diner that served the best pie for miles, and a dusty main street where local ranchers often gathered to talk cattle prices and rodeo stories. People were friendly, but they also had strong opinions about what women should and shouldn't do. Maggie often overheard whispers when she rode past a group of men on horseback. "Girls don't rope like that," they would say, shaking their heads. Sometimes they added, "Let her stick to the kitchen," or "That's dangerous for a young lady." Maggie kept her chin high, letting their words wash over her like dust in the wind. She knew her passion was real and nothing would stop her from pursuing it. On the weekends, Maggie would sneak over to the small arena near the edge of town, where local rodeos held practice sessions. She would watch cowboys and cowgirls alike, studying their technique, timing, and style. Every movement fascinated her. The way they twirled their rope above their head, the careful steps they took toward the calf, and the split-second timing needed to catch it just right. Maggie practiced tirelessly in her backyard, often using old barrels or makeshift targets when there were no calves to rope. Her rope was frayed from use, and her hands bore small cuts, but she loved every moment of it. School was another challenge. While Maggie enjoyed learning and had a sharp mind, many classmates didn't understand her interest in rodeo and ranch work. Girls in her class talked about dresses, dances, and dates, while Maggie was thinking about her next ride or how to perfect a new roping trick. Boys often challenged her abilities with teasing, asking if she could really rope as well as they could. Maggie never backed down. She would accept the challenge, proving herself again and again, even when it left her exhausted. Her persistence began to earn respect from a few classmates, though the town as a whole remained skeptical. Despite the doubts, Maggie found encouragement in small victories. Once when her father asked her to help round up a stray calf, she did it faster and more efficiently than the hired hands. They stared at her, mouths slightly open as she swung her rope, caught the calf, and guided it calmly back to the pen. "Where did you learn to do that?" one of the men asked, astonished. Maggie just smiled, shrugging as if it were nothing, though inside she felt a thrill of pride. Moments like these fueled her determination to keep improving, to show the town that her skills were real, and that she belonged in the world of ranching just as much as any man. Evenings at home were filled with quiet reflection. Maggie would sit on the porch with her notebook, sketching horses, writing about her dreams and imagining the future. She pictured herself riding across endless pastures, roping with skill and speed that amazed everyone, and even competing in larger rodeos someday. Her dreams felt big for a small-town girl, but Maggie had learned early on that hard work could turn dreams into reality. Her father's words echoed in her mind. Talent was only part of the journey. Courage and perseverance were just as important. Life on the farm also taught Maggie lessons beyond roping and horseback riding. She learned the value of patience, tending to crops, mending fences, and caring for animals. Each task required attention, careful planning, and sometimes a quiet stubbornness to see things through. Maggie realized that ranch work wasn't just about physical strength. It was about knowing the land, understanding the animals, and respecting the rhythm of nature. These lessons, though hard-won, shaped her character and prepared her for challenges that lay beyond the farm. Her mother, soft-spoken and practical, provided another layer of support. She made sure Maggie had time for schoolwork while still encouraging her love for the outdoors. "You have a gift," her mother said one evening, handing Maggie a small, worn lasso she had found in the attic. "Use it wisely and never let anyone tell you what you can't do." Maggie held it tightly, feeling a connection to the generations of women in her family who had worked quietly behind the scenes. It wasn't just a rope. It was a symbol of opportunity and belief in herself. As the years went by, Maggie's skills grew sharper, and so did her reputation. She became known among the neighboring farms as the girl who could rope anything, a girl with determination in her eyes and courage in her heart. People began to whisper with a mix of surprise and admiration, saying, "Have you seen Maggie rope?" Or, "She's faster than some of the men around here." Even though some remained skeptical, Maggie didn't let it bother her. She had learned that recognition would come not from seeking approval, but from proving herself through action. By the time she reached her late teens, Maggie was ready to test herself beyond the fields she had always known. She watched local rodeos with careful attention, imagining the thrill of competing, of stepping into the arena and showing the world what she could do. She knew it wouldn't be easy. Rodeos were competitive, crowded, and sometimes unforgiving. But Maggie had spent a lifetime preparing for this moment, learning lessons from every calf she roped, every horse she rode, and every doubt she had overcome. She was ready. In the quiet moments, Maggie would often dream about the life ahead, the adventures she might have, and the people she might meet. She imagined a future where her skills were respected, where she could work on a ranch that appreciated her talent, and maybe even inspire other girls to follow their own passions. These dreams weren't fanciful. They were goals she intended to reach with hard work, determination, and the quiet courage she had been cultivating since she was a child. And so, Maggie's journey was only beginning. On the outside, she looked like a regular girl from a small Texas town, but inside she carried the heart of a true cowgirl. Brave, skilled, and ready to take on the world, one steer at a time. Every rope she swung, every ride she took, brought her closer to the day she would prove that her place in the arena was not defined by tradition or gender, but by talent, heart, and unyielding determination. The morning of the county fair rodeo arrived like a burst of excitement sweeping through the small town. Maggie woke before sunrise, her heart pounding with a mix of nerves and anticipation. She had never entered a rodeo of this size before. The fairgrounds were alive with activity. The smell of fresh hay and horses mingled with the aroma of fried foods from the nearby stalls, and the sound of laughter, music, and shuffling boots filled the air. Families set up blankets to watch the events, and cowboys adjusted their hats and boots while checking their ropes one last time. Maggie carefully braided her hair and put on her favorite worn-out jeans and a faded blue shirt. She adjusted the leather gloves her father had given her, the ones that fit snugly and made her hands feel ready for anything. Her horse, Dusty, whinnied softly as she led him out of the trailer, nuzzling her shoulder as if sensing the tension in her body. Maggie smiled, brushing Dusty's neck and whispering, "We've got this, boy." The bond between them had grown over years of early mornings and long rides, and she knew she could rely on him completely. The The competition was fierce. Maggie watched as other contestants warmed up, swinging their ropes with precision, circling their calves, and checking every detail. Most of them were older, experienced men who had been in rodeos for years. A few women were there too, but none seemed to match Maggie's quiet confidence. She felt the eyes of the crowd and other competitors on her, some skeptical, some curious. "She thinks she can take on these men," one of the cowboys whispered. Maggie caught the words but didn't flinch. Instead, she focused on the task ahead, reminding herself that skill and preparation mattered more than words. When her name was called, Maggie rode Dusty toward the arena, feeling the adrenaline surge. The gates opened, and a young, spirited steer bounded into the Dusty enclosure. Maggie's heart raced as she tightened her grip on the rope. Dusty shifted under her, sensing the energy and excitement, ready to respond to her commands. She exhaled slowly, clearing her mind, and approached the steer with steady confidence. The crowd murmured as she swung her rope above her head. Some people held their breath, waiting to see if the young girl could match the men who had gone before her. Maggie's hands moved with careful precision. She let the rope spin gracefully, timing each loop perfectly, and with a swift, clean motion she caught the steer. Dusty moved in sync, guiding the animal gently back toward the pen. The audience erupted into applause, some surprised, some genuinely impressed. Maggie couldn't help but smile as she held her head high, feeling the thrill of accomplishment and the validation of her hard work. For Maggie, the victory was more than just winning the round. It was a moment of recognition, proof that years of early mornings, practice, and persistence were paying off. She remembered all the times people had doubted her, told her she couldn't do something because she was a girl, and laughed at the idea of a young woman outroping experienced men. Each swing of her rope, each successful attempt, was a small triumph over those doubts. After her run, Maggie dismounted and walked Dusty toward the water trough, allowing him to drink and cool down. A few spectators approached, shaking their heads in amazement. "I've never seen anyone rope like that," one man said. Another added, "She's faster than most of the guys I know." Maggie nodded politely, hiding her nerves behind a quiet smile. Compliments were new to her, and while they felt good, she reminded herself that the real test wasn't the applause. It was consistency, skill, and determination. Meanwhile, backstage, the other contestants whispered among themselves. Some were respectful, tipping their hats or offering a few words of encouragement. Others were skeptical, unwilling to admit that a girl had bested them. Maggie overheard a few comments but let them roll off her shoulders. She had learned long ago that criticism often said more about the speaker than the person being judged. She focused on preparing for the next round, keeping her mind clear and her body ready. The afternoon brought more rounds, each one increasingly challenging. The steers were faster, more unpredictable, and the crowd grew larger with each event. Maggie's nerves returned as she watched other competitors perform flawlessly, knowing that one mistake could cost her the round. But she had learned to stay calm under pressure, a skill developed from years of early mornings and quiet practice sessions. She reminded herself to breathe, to trust Dusty, and to focus on the rhythm of the rope and the movement of the steer. When her turn came again, Maggie swung into action with precision and grace. Dusty responded instantly, moving with her, anticipating her commands. The steer darted in different directions, testing her reflexes, but Maggie stayed calm, guiding the rope skillfully. With one swift toss, the rope caught around the steer's horns, and she guided it back toward the pen smoothly. The crowd erupted again, some cheering loudly, others clapping in disbelief. Maggie felt a rush of pride, not for the applause itself, but for the feeling of mastering something she had worked toward for years. By the end of the day, Maggie had not only completed all her rounds successfully, but had also captured the attention of many spectators and participants. People who had doubted her now nodded in respect, whispering to one another about the young woman who had outperformed the men. Maggie smiled quietly, knowing that this was just the beginning. Recognition was important, but she also understood that hard work, persistence, and humility were what truly mattered. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Maggie walked Dusty out of the arena. Her legs were tired, her arms sore from swinging the rope, but her spirit was high. She felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond winning. It was the satisfaction of proving to herself, more than anyone else, that she had the skill and determination to succeed. Among the crowd, a few notable figures watched quietly, assessing each competitor. One of them was Cowboy Jack, a respected ranch owner from a neighboring county. He had seen many young riders over the years, but Maggie's performance caught his eye. He noticed the way she moved with confidence, the natural connection between her and Dusty, and the calm determination that guided every action. It was clear to him that Maggie was not just talented, she was exceptional. After the competition, Jack approached Maggie as she prepared to leave. He tipped his hat respectfully. "I've seen a lot of cowhands in my time," he said, his voice steady and kind. "But I haven't seen anyone rope a steer like you just did. You've got skill, courage, and heart. If you ever want a place where that kind of talent is truly appreciated, I need you on my ranch." Maggie's eyes widened. She had dreamed of opportunities beyond her small town, but hearing someone she respected say those words made it feel real, like the possibilities she had imagined could actually come true. Maggie thanked him, her voice steady even though her heart raced. She walked back to Dusty, who nuzzled her hand as if sharing in the excitement. That evening, as they rode back to the trailer, Maggie thought about everything that had brought her here. The early mornings, the hours of practice, the encouragement from her parents, and the quiet determination that had never let her give up. Every step had led to this moment, and she felt ready for whatever came next. That night, Maggie sat by the fire in her family's backyard, reflecting on the day. The sky was clear, stars twinkling above, and the world felt full of possibility. She thought about the fairgrounds, the cheering crowd, and the respect she had earned through hard work. More than anything, she felt proud of herself. She had faced challenges, overcome doubts, and proven that skill and determination could break through barriers. Maggie also thought about the future. The opportunity Cowboy Jack had offered wasn't something to rush into lightly, but it sparked a dream she had never dared to fully imagine. A life where her talent could be appreciated, where she could work alongside people who respected her skill, and where she could continue to grow as a cowgirl. The thought made her heart race with excitement and hope. As she drifted off to sleep, Maggie felt a deep sense of contentment. She knew that her journey was just beginning. The county fair rodeo had been a test, a stage to show her abilities, and she had passed with flying colors. But the real adventure was still ahead, and she felt ready to embrace it with all the courage, skill, and determination she had cultivated since her earliest days on the farm. The morning after the rodeo, Maggie woke with a mixture of excitement and nervous energy. The previous day's success still felt like a dream. She had proven herself in front of the crowd, outroping experienced cowboys and earning admiration she had never known before. But now the words of Cowboy Jack echoed in her mind. "I need you on my ranch." She had smiled and thanked him politely, but now, in the quiet of her small bedroom, she realized what those words truly meant. It was not just recognition, it was an invitation to step into a completely new world. Maggie dressed quickly, pulling on her sturdy jeans and favorite plaid shirt. Her father had left early to tend to the cattle, and her mother was in the kitchen, humming softly as she baked bread. Maggie walked downstairs, her mind racing. She needed to talk to her parents to understand what this opportunity meant and whether she was truly ready to take such a big step. "Mom, Dad," she began, her voice slightly trembling. Her mother turned with a warm smile, noticing the seriousness in her daughter's eyes. "You did amazing yesterday," she said. "I've never seen anyone rope a steer like you. I'm proud of you." Maggie smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude and love, but she quickly added, "It's more than the rodeo, Mom. Cowboy Jack, he said he wants me on his ranch. He thinks I have real talent, and I think I might want to go." Her mother's eyes widened slightly, a mix of surprise and concern. "That's a big step, Maggie," she said softly. "It's exciting, yes, but it's also a huge responsibility. It would mean leaving home, working with people you don't know, and handling cattle and ranch life every single day. Are you sure you're ready for that?" Maggie nodded, feeling the determination in her chest. "I think so, Mom. I've worked hard for this, and I feel like it's time to see what I can really do." Her father returned from the fields just as she finished speaking. He wiped his hands on a rag and sat down beside her, his expression thoughtful. "You've always had a gift, Maggie," he said slowly. "I can see it every day. You're brave, hardworking, and smart, but leaving home is not easy. You'll have to make your own decisions, face challenges, and sometimes be alone. Are you ready for all that?" Maggie looked into his eyes, seeing the mixture of worry and pride. She nodded firmly. "I am, Dad. I know it won't be easy, but I want to try. I want to see what I can do with my skills." Her father smiled faintly and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then you have our support. Just promise me one thing, stay true to yourself and don't let anyone make you doubt your abilities. You've got talent, Maggie, and it's time to let the world see it." Maggie felt a surge of emotion, grateful for their encouragement and love. She hugged them tightly, knowing she would miss home, but feeling ready to face the new challenges ahead. The next day, Maggie rode Dusty toward the fairgrounds again, where Cowboy Jack was waiting. His ranch truck was parked near the arena, and he greeted her with a firm handshake and a warm smile. "Maggie," he said, "I've seen a lot of cowhands in my time, but you have something special. I want you on my ranch not just to rope, but to learn, grow, and show what you're capable of. It won't be easy, but I believe you're ready." Maggie's heart raced as she listened. This was the opportunity she had dreamed of, a chance to step beyond the small town and into a bigger world where her skills could shine. Jack led her through the fairgrounds, showing her some of the equipment, trailers, and animals she would work with on the ranch. He explained the daily routine, the expectations, and the challenges she might face. Maggie listened carefully, absorbing every word. She realized that this was not just about roping steers. It was about responsibility, teamwork, and adapting to life in a professional ranch environment. She felt both excitement and nervousness, but she also felt ready. As they walked, Jack paused and looked at her seriously. "Maggie, I need you to understand something," he said. "Ranch life is hard, long hours, early mornings, and sometimes dangerous situations. But if you're willing to work hard and learn, I promise you'll find it rewarding. You have talent, yes, but it's your attitude, determination, and heart that will make you truly valuable here." Maggie nodded, feeling the weight of his words. She had faced skepticism all her life, and now she was facing a challenge that was bigger than anything she had done before. But she was determined to prove herself, not just to Jack, but to herself as well. The ride back home was quiet, filled with Maggie's thoughts. She thought about the farm she was leaving, the animals she loved, and the people who had supported her. She thought about the fairgrounds, the cheering crowd, and the moment when her skill had been recognized. And she thought about the ranch, a new world of possibilities waiting for her. Maggie realized that while leaving home would be hard, staying put might mean leaving her dreams unfulfilled. She decided that she was ready to take the leap. Over the next few days, Maggie prepared for the move. She packed her belongings carefully, making sure to include her worn gloves, favorite rope, and a few personal items that reminded her of home. Her parents helped, offering advice, encouragement, and gentle reminders to stay true to herself. Her brothers teased her as they always did, but she knew their jokes were filled with pride and love. The day she left, the whole family came to the edge of the farm to see her off. Maggie hugged each one, feeling a lump in her throat but also a sense of excitement that made her heart soar. When Maggie arrived at Jack's ranch, she was struck by its size and beauty. Rolling hills stretched as far as she could see, dotted with cattle grazing peacefully in the early morning sun. The ranch buildings were sturdy and well kept, and there was a sense of life and activity everywhere she looked. Maggie felt both awe and determination. She was entering a new world, one that would test her skills, courage, and resilience. Jack introduced her to the ranch hands, a group of experienced cowboys and cowgirls who looked at her with curiosity. Some smiled and welcomed her warmly, while others were more reserved, observing her quietly to see if she could keep up. Maggie nodded politely, determined to earn their respect not through words but through action. She knew that trust and recognition would come from her performance, her attitude, and her willingness to work hard. Her first tasks were simple but important. She learned to check the fences, feed the animals, and familiarize herself with the layout of the ranch. Dusty, her faithful companion, adapted quickly to the new environment, and Maggie felt comfort in knowing she wasn't facing this challenge alone. She worked long hours, often starting before sunrise and ending after sunset, but each day brought a new sense of accomplishment. The ranch was demanding, but Maggie felt alive in a way she had never experienced before. Over the following weeks, Maggie began to take on more challenging tasks. She helped round up stray cattle, repaired broken fences, and learned the best ways to handle the animals during difficult situations. Jack provided guidance, offering advice and encouragement while allowing her to make mistakes and learn from them. Maggie quickly realized that talent alone wasn't enough. Patience, observation, and a willingness to learn were equally important. Each day brought new lessons, and she embraced them with determination and focus. The ranch hands began to notice her skill and attitude. Slowly, respect replaced curiosity and skepticism. They observed how she moved with confidence around the animals, how she handled the rope with precision, and how she approached every task with a combination of courage and thoughtfulness. Maggie earned small nods of approval, quiet compliments, and sometimes words of encouragement. She knew that building trust took time, but she was willing to work for it. Evenings on the ranch were quiet and reflective. Maggie would often sit on a hill, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. Dusty would graze nearby, and the gentle hum of the ranch life would fill the air. Maggie thought about her family, the farm she had left behind, and the journey that had brought her here. She felt a mix of nostalgia, excitement, and determination. She had taken a leap into a new life, and she was ready to embrace every challenge and opportunity that came her way. One afternoon, Jack approached her while she was practicing her roping. He watched quietly for a few moments before speaking. "Maggie," he said, "you're doing well. I can see that you're not just talented, you're dedicated, willing to learn, and strong in spirit. That's rare. Keep this up and you'll go far, not just on this ranch, but in the life you're building for yourself." Maggie felt a surge of pride, but also humility. She knew that recognition was meaningful, but the real reward was in the work itself, the skill, discipline, and growth that came with each day. By the end of the first month, Maggie had settled into a rhythm. She rose early, worked alongside the ranch hands, and returned home to Dusty at sunset, feeling tired but fulfilled. She had faced challenges, learned lessons, and grown in ways she had never imagined. The decision to leave her small town and family had been difficult, but it had opened a door to a world where her skills and determination were truly valued. Maggie realized that this was only the beginning of her journey, and she was ready to continue, step by step, day by day. Maggie woke early that morning, before the sun had even begun to rise over the rolling hills of Cowboy Jack's ranch. The soft pink light of dawn began to creep over the pastures, painting the landscape in gentle shades of gold and orange. The ranch had become her new home, a place filled with opportunity, responsibility, and endless challenges. Dusty nickered softly, eager to begin the day, and Maggie felt a sense of calm excitement as she brushed his coat and saddled him. Each day on the ranch brought a new adventure, and Maggie had learned to embrace every moment with focus and determination. The first weeks had been filled with learning. Maggie had started with the basics, feeding the animals, checking fences, and learning the layout of the sprawling property. She had been nervous at first, unsure if she could meet the expectations of the experienced ranch hands and Cowboy Jack. But each day she grew more confident. She learned to anticipate the movements of cattle, read the behavior of horses, and handle the rope with precision and care. Slowly, the other ranch hands began to notice her skill and dedication. One morning, Jack called Maggie to help with a particularly challenging task, rounding up a herd of cattle that had wandered into a distant pasture. The task was difficult because the terrain was rough and the cattle were skittish, but Maggie felt ready. She mounted Dusty and followed Jack and the other ranch hands, moving with care and patience. Dusty responded perfectly to her commands, and together they guided the herd back to safety. Jack watched her closely, nodding in approval. "You handled that well," he said. "Not everyone could have done it as calmly and efficiently as you did." Maggie felt a swell of pride, not for the praise itself, but because she knew she had earned it through skill and focus. As the weeks passed, Maggie's confidence and abilities continued to grow. She was trusted with more responsibility, from repairing fences to managing the feed schedule for the livestock. Each task was a chance to prove herself, and she approached each one with a combination of determination and careful attention. The ranch hands began to include her in planning and strategy, recognizing that her ideas and insight were valuable. Maggie felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. She was no longer just the young girl who had shown up at the rodeo. She was a vital part of the ranch's daily operations. One afternoon, a neighboring ranch called for help with a stray calf that had escaped onto their property. Jack asked Maggie if she wanted to lead the effort to bring it back. Her heart raced with excitement, but she didn't hesitate. She mounted Dusty and rode out with the team, carefully tracking the calf's movements. Using everything she had learned over the years, the timing of the rope, the subtle commands to Dusty, and her understanding of cattle behavior, she guided the calf back safely. The neighboring rancher was impressed. "That's some fine work," he said. "I can see why Jack values you so highly." Maggie smiled quietly, feeling the satisfaction of helping others while honing her skills. Evenings on the ranch were a time for reflection. Maggie often rode Dusty to the top of a hill, overlooking the pastures and barns. The sky would turn shades of purple and orange, and the gentle sounds of the animals settling for the night filled the air. She thought about her journey, from the small farm where she had grown up, to the county fair rodeo where her talent had been recognized, to this ranch that had become her new home. Each step had taught her something important: patience, perseverance, humility, and the value of hard work. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack approached Maggie while she was sitting atop the hill. "You've come a long way," he said, his voice calm but filled with respect. "I knew you had talent when I first saw you, but you've proven something even more important: your heart and your determination. Those are qualities that make a real rancher." Maggie felt a deep sense of pride and gratitude. She had worked hard to reach this point, and hearing Jack acknowledge her growth felt like the ultimate reward. Life on the ranch was not always easy. There were days when the sun was scorching, and the work seemed endless. There were mornings when Dusty was stubborn, and evenings when Maggie's muscles ached from long hours of labor. But each challenge was a lesson, each difficulty an opportunity to grow. She learned to rely not only on her skill, but also on her patience, judgment, and ability to adapt to unexpected situations. With every passing day, she became more confident in her abilities and more respected by those around her. Maggie also developed strong bonds with the other ranch hands. At first, some of them had been skeptical of her abilities, but they soon recognized her talent and determination. They began to include her in conversations, ask her opinion on difficult tasks, and even seek her guidance when handling tricky situations with the cattle. Maggie realized that respect was earned through action, not words, and she felt proud of the friendships she had built. These relationships made her feel truly part of the ranch community, and she cherished the camaraderie and teamwork that came with it. One morning, Jack asked Maggie to participate in a regional rodeo representing the ranch. It was an opportunity to showcase her skills in front of a larger audience, and she felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She spent weeks preparing, practicing her roping technique, refining her timing, and ensuring that Dusty was in peak condition. When the day arrived, Maggie entered the arena with confidence, focusing on the task at hand. She moved with precision, her rope flying through the air with perfect timing, and Dusty responded flawlessly. The crowd erupted in applause as she guided the steer safely into the pen. Maggie felt a surge of pride, not for the recognition, but for the culmination of all the hard work, training, and dedication that had brought her to this moment. Back at the ranch, Maggie continued to grow and take on new challenges. She learned advanced techniques for managing large herds, coordinating with multiple ranch hands, and planning long-term strategies for the care of the animals and the land. Jack trusted her judgment and often asked for her input on important decisions. Maggie had become more than just a skilled roper. She was a leader, a problem solver, and an essential part of the ranch's success. Even as she thrived on the ranch, Maggie never forgot her roots. She wrote letters to her family, shared stories of her experiences, and often reflected on the lessons she had learned growing up on the small farm. She realized that every step of her journey had contributed to her success. The early mornings, the long hours of practice, the challenges she had overcome, and the love and support of her family. Each memory reminded her of how far she had come and how much she had grown. One evening, after a long day of work, Maggie sat by the fire with Jack and a few of the ranch hands. They shared stories, laughter, and lessons learned from years on the ranch. Maggie felt a sense of belonging she had never known before. She was respected, valued, and appreciated for her skills, her determination, and her heart. The journey that had begun with a single county fair rodeo had transformed her life, opening doors she had never imagined and giving her the confidence to pursue her dreams fully. As the weeks turned into months, Maggie became a role model for other young women in the community. She encouraged them to pursue their passions, to work hard, and to never let doubts or stereotypes hold them back. She shared her experiences, showing that talent, determination, and a willingness to learn could overcome any obstacle. Maggie's story spread beyond the ranch, inspiring others to follow their dreams and embrace challenges with courage and confidence. Maggie also discovered a deeper connection to the land and animals she cared for. She learned to read the subtle signs in the behavior of the cattle, anticipate their needs, and respond with patience and understanding. She developed a profound respect for the rhythms of ranch life, the rising and setting of the sun, the changes in weather, and the cycles of nature. Each day brought new lessons and opportunities for growth, and Maggie embraced them all with an open heart and mind. By the end of her first year on the ranch, Maggie had transformed from a young girl with a dream into a skilled, respected, and confident rancher. She had faced challenges, overcome doubts, and proven herself through hard work, dedication, and courage. She had gained the respect of her peers, the trust of her mentor, and the confidence to pursue her dreams fully. Maggie had found her place in the world, a place where her talents were recognized, her efforts were valued, and her heart could flourish. One crisp morning, as Maggie rode Dusty across the pasture, she paused to look back at the ranch buildings, the rolling hills, and the grazing cattle. She thought about how far she had come, from a small farm where people doubted her abilities, to a county fair where her skill had been recognized, to a ranch that had become her home and opportunity. She felt a deep sense of gratitude, pride, and fulfillment. Every rope she had swung, every early morning, every challenge she had faced had led her to this moment. Maggie knew that her journey was far from over. There would always be new challenges, new skills to learn, and new opportunities to embrace. But she also knew that she had the courage, determination, and heart to meet whatever came her way. The life she had dreamed of was no longer a dream. It was her reality, built through talent, hard work, and unwavering perseverance. As the sun set behind the hills, painting the sky with shades of pink, orange, and purple, Maggie felt a sense of peace and accomplishment. She was no longer just the girl who had roped a steer better than any man. She was a respected cowgirl, a valued member of the ranch, and a young woman who had proven to herself and the world that determination, skill, and heart could open doors to a life full of purpose, adventure, and fulfillment. And as she guided Dusty back to the barn, ready to rest and prepare for another day of hard work and new challenges, Maggie smiled, knowing that she had found her place in the world, and nothing could ever take that away from her.